Joseph, somewhere on the Atlantic Ocean, still 1939, 14 days from home. A day out from Cuba, the St. Louis threw a party. Streamers and balloons hung from the ceiling and decorated the gallery rails of the first-class social hall. Chairs and tables were pushed aside to make room for dancers. There was a feeling of wild relief, as though they were dancing away all the stress of leaving Germany. The stewards smiled with the passengers, as though they understood. But none of them could really understand, Joseph thought. Not until their shop windows had been smashed and their businesses had been shut down. Not until the newspapers and radio talked about them as subhuman monsters. But until shadowy men had burst into their homes and smashed up their things and dragged away someone they loved. Not until they had been told to leave their homeland and never come back, ever. Still, Joseph enjoyed the party. He danced with his mother while Ruthie, Renata, and Evelyn ran in and out between people's legs all evening long. Joseph had been nervous about Cuba at first, scared of the unknown. But now he was excited to reach Havana, to start a new life, especially if it was like this. Joseph's father stayed hidden away in their cabin the whole night. Sure, this was all just another Nazi trick. The next morning, breakfast in the ship's dining room was interrupted by a thundering, clanking sound of the anchors being dropped. Joseph ran to the window. Dawn had broken, and Joseph could see the Malecon, Havana's famous seaside avenue. The stewards had told them all about its casinos, its theaters and casinos and restaurants, and the Miramar Hotel where all the waiters wore tuxedos. But the St. Louis was still a long way off from there. For some reason, the ship had anchored kilometers out from shore. It's for a medical quarantine, a doctor from Frankfurt explained to the small crowd who had gathered with Joseph at the porthole to look at Cuba. I saw them run a yellow flag this morning before breakfast. We have to be approved by the port's medical authorities first. Standard procedure. Joseph made sure he was on deck when the first boat from the Havana Port Authority reached the St. Louis. The Cuban man who climbed the ladder to sea deck from the launch was deeply tanned and wore a lightweight white suit. Joseph watched as Captain Schroeder and the ship's doctor met the man as he came aboard. The captain swore an oath that none of the passengers were insane, a criminal, or had a contagious disease. That was apparently all that should have been required, because when the port doctor insisted he still be allowed to examine each and every passenger, Captain Schroeder looked angry. He balled his fists and breathed deeply, but he did not object. He gave a curt order to the ship's doctor to assemble the passengers in the social hall and then marched away. Joseph ran back to his cabin and burst in on his mother packing the last of their things. Ruthie was helping her while Papa lay on the bed. The doctor from Cuba, he's going to make all the passengers go through a medical examination, Joseph told his mother, still panting from running. They're gathering everybody in the social hall right now. Mama's shocked look told him she understood. Papa was not well. What if the Cuban doctor said he was too mentally disturbed to be allowed into Havana? Where would they go if Cuba turned them away? What would they do? Gathering up, Papa said. He looked even more frightened by the prospect that Joseph's mother had. Like a roll call? He stood up and backed against a wall. No, he said. The things that happened at roll call, the hangings, the floggings, the drownings, the beatings. He wrapped his arms around himself, and Joseph knew his father was talking about that place, Dachau. Joseph and his mother stood like statues, afraid to break the spell. Once, I saw another man shot dead with a rifle, his father whispered. He was standing right beside me. And I couldn't move, couldn't make a sound, or I would be next. It's not going to be like that, dear heart, Mama said. She reached out to him tentatively, gently, and he didn't flinch under her hand. You were strong once before in that place. We just need you to be strong again, and then we'll be in Cuba. We'll be safe forever, all of us. It was clear to Joseph that his father was still lost in his memories of Dachau as they led him to the social hall. Papa looked frightened, jittery. It scared Joseph when his father got this way, because he was even more scared than the doctor would see Papa's condition and turn them away. Joseph and his family joined the other passengers standing in rows, and the doctor walked among them. Papa stood beside Joseph as the doctor got closer. Joseph's father began to make a low, keening sound, like a wounded dog. Papa was starting to attract the attention of the passengers around them. Joseph felt a bead of sweat roll down his back underneath his shirt, and Ruthie cried softly. "Be strong, my love," Joseph heard his mother whisper to his father. "Be strong like you were before." "But I wasn't," Joseph's father blubbered. "I wasn't strong. I was just lucky. It could have been me, should have been me." The Cuban doctor was getting closer. Joseph had to do something. But what? His father was inconsolable. The things he said he saw, Joseph couldn't even imagine. His father had only survived by staying quiet, by not drawing attention to himself. But now he was going to get them sent away. Suddenly, Joseph saw what he had to do. He slapped his father across the face, hard. Papa staggered in surprise, and Joseph felt just as shocked as his father looked. Joseph couldn't believe what he'd just done. 6 months ago, he would have never dreamed about striking any adult, let alone his father. Papa would have punished him for such disrespect. But in the past 6 months, Joseph and his father had traded places. Papa was the one acting like a child, and Joseph was the adult. Mama and Ruthie stared at Joseph, stunned, but he ignored them and pulled his father back in line. "Do you want the Nazis to catch you? Do you want them to send you back to that place?" Joseph hissed at his father. No, his father said, still dazed. "That man there," Joseph whispered, pointing to the doctor. "He's a Nazi in disguise. He decides who gets to go back to Dachau. He decides who lives and who dies. If you're lucky, he won't choose you. But if you speak, if you move, if you make even the slightest sound, he will pull you out of line and send you back. Do you understand?" Joseph's father nodded urgently. Beside him, Mama put a hand to her mouth and wept, but she didn't say anything. "Now clean yourself up quickly," Joseph told his father. Aaron Landau dropped his wife's hand, dragged his oversized coat sleeve across his face, and stood rigidly at attention, eyes forward, like a prisoner. The doctor came down their row, looking at each person. When he got to Papa, Joseph held his breath. The doctor looked Joseph's father up and down, then moved on. Joseph sagged with relief. They'd made it. His father had passed the doctor's inspection. Joseph closed his eyes and fought back tears of his own. He felt terrible for scaring his father like that, for making Papa's fears worse instead of better, and he felt terrible for taking his father's place as the man in the family. All Joseph's life, he had looked up to his father, idolized him. Now it was hard to see him as anything but a broken old man. But all that would change when they got off the ship and into Cuba. Then everything would go back to normal. They would find a way to fix his father. The Cuban doctor finished his rounds and nodded to the ship's doctor that he approved of the passengers. Joseph's mother wrapped his father in a hug, and Joseph felt his heart lift. For the first time all afternoon, he felt hope. "Well, that was a sham," said the man standing in line next to him. "What do you mean?" Joseph asked. "That was no kind of medical inspection. The entire business was a charade, a giant waste of time." Joseph didn't understand. If it wasn't a proper medical inspection, what had it all been for? He understood when he and his father lined up at the ladder on sea deck to leave the ship. The Cuban doctor was gone, and he left Cuban police officers behind in his place. They were blocking the only way off the ship. We've passed our medicals, and we have all the right papers," a woman passenger said to the police. When will we be allowed into Havana?" "Mañana," the policeman said in Spanish. "Mañana." Joseph didn't speak Spanish. He didn't know what mañana meant. "Tomorrow," one of the other passengers translated for them. "Not today. Tomorrow."